It was what do you call it?
The BMF, baby.
BMF, that's right.
It was the production BMF, which is the big money finder.
I don't want to be the bad guy. I want people to be happy. I want people to move into a house that they love and they had a decent experience.
They've been in construction all their life, and then they see this, and they're like, man, this is mind-blowing.
Expect those up front, and when they don't happen, then they'll be pleasantly surprised.
The idea is you come into a system and a culture and a process that are all dialed in equally.
Right.
You have no option but to be successful. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the BARNDO Show. Today, I got my man Conner here with us. Conner is one of our project managers. So,
what's going on, TJ?
Yeah, what's up, bro?
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I love having you guys in here.
Yeah.
So, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, man. Like who you are. I mean, obviously, Conner. I stole your thunder. I took your name. So
it's all right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a project manager at the BARNDO Co. I've been here since December of last year. I've been in the construction industry for a few years now, coming up on I think it's 6 years. So yeah, I've kind of just fell into it, honestly. It's actually kind of a funny story. I was 19. We just had our first child, my daughter. She was a little over a year old. We had just rented our first house. I was working for an alarm company, and some things happened. Me and the manager didn't really get along well, and I went out on medical leave. Had to come back, and like 3 days after I came back, he ended up letting me go. So I basically I was 19, had my first kid in our first house. I was like, I got to make some money. So I just started applying anywhere and everywhere that would have let me apply. Anything that didn't require a college degree, I put an application in. So it's like 2 or 3 days later after I started all that, I get a phone call from a builder. And the manager, he calls me up and he's like, hey, I saw you put an application in for a helper position. And I was like, oh, I did? So he was like, yeah, you did, and I'd like to set up an interview. So I interviewed, got the job, and ended up getting the construction that way. Kind of just fell into it.
Well, I could say this. I'm thankful for that security alarm manager for pushing you into the construction industry, because you've been great for us since
absolutely.
You came here.
Honestly, I got into it and just kind of fell in love with it. I started as a helper, just at the bottom like most other guys do, and I kind of just fell in love. I realized that, I can be pretty decent at this job and I can make some decent money without having to go to college or do anything like that. So yeah, I fell in love with it. I was like, man, this is really cool. I get to see different stuff every day. I get to see, I'm not stuck inside the same four walls in the same building. I'm out in the field. I get to see all kinds of different things on a daily basis. So it was really cool, really kind of mix up for me. So.
Well, the cool thing about it is you said, hey, I've been here since December of last year. And a lot of people would hear that and be like, oh my God, this new guy. But tell everybody, your first quarter with the BARNDO Co. was January through end of March.
Yeah.
And we had our quarterly, and you were
what do you call it?
The BMF, baby.
BMF, that's right.
It was the production BMF, which is the big money finder, which, again, like, it's not just about the money, but that is the biggest indicator of progress, right? So if you look at that and say, this guy brought in more revenue through construction than everyone else on the team, it's because you're getting more stuff done. So, you kind of came in and took off with the BARNDO Co. and started it was like every day, it was like, Conner just got CO on this one. CO. And so we were like, oh man, I love this kid. Like,
yeah.
But it's been awesome, man, to have you a part of the team, because, just being able to like see someone that's eager and young and like just really like buys into the core values of the company, come in and just make a splash like that. And like, I like to see the faces of some of the staple players, and they're going,
that's right.
This guy won. Like,
that's right.
And
the youngest PM in the company. Dang right.
Man. And
I think my prior experience and shout out area manager Billy. I have actually known Billy and Nick for a long time, for a few years now. And Billy taught me a lot that I use today. So I thank Billy for a lot.
The warden, baby.
The warden, baby.
Every episode, I feel like we shout out Billy, because Billy is the man.
Billy's the man.
You can go back and watch Billy's episode. He's a few episodes back, but he's phenomenal, and his insight's great. And
I love Billy.
He is the schedule master.
Absolutely. And one thing I love him for is there's a lot of things that, maybe I haven't encountered in the past, or, things that I'm not familiar with. All I have to do is call Billy. He'll show up and he'll be like, oh, simple as that. Quick fix. I'm like, I didn't even think about that.
I know, man. He's everywhere.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. I was in our Somerville location a month ago or so, and just hanging out. I came downstairs and there's Billy down there, just like having conversation. I'm like, man, you're everywhere. Like Billy is a great dude.
Yeah, it's funny. Your PM or like even director. You have set, things that you have to do every day. Billy, it's just anything and everything on a daily basis. He's everywhere.
I know, man.
Hey, everyone's calling him.
That's great. It's great. I agree. He's a reason a lot of dudes are successful in our company,
Right.
But I don't know, man. You've been doing the Barndo thing now for 6 months. Like, what do you think is the biggest differences that you've seen, like doing Barndo builds versus like your prior 6 years doing, more conventional construction?
Yeah, so I come from production building. So I worked for a lot of bigger builders, mainly production. So like just building out houses in neighborhoods. So, obviously the main differences were semi-custom. I've never done, custom, semi-custom before. A little bit in production, but it's production. Semi-custom, especially the way we do it, build on your own lots, like, basically exclusively build on your own lots. It's a totally different ball game. You're talking, stuff that you don't even think about on a daily basis in production in a neighborhood. Right. But you have to just, these issues come up in the field and you're like, I've never dealt with that, but we're going to figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the biggest one. And I will say the post frame hybrid that we've coined, it's really cool. I've never seen something built like that, but it's very, very unique product. And it's especially the customizability, especially on the inside, because the only point loads are those posts. So everything else is customizable.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun to watch guys that come in and, are leading these projects, and they've been in construction all their life, and then they see this and they're like, man, this is mind blowing. How it's like the initial stages of construction are so swift,
right?
Exactly. There's a lot of moving pieces on the back end to make that happen.
There's a lot of moving pieces in general,
but the just the process and then the overall product is just so superior.
And again, it goes back to standards. Like all of our standards as a company are upgrades for any other builder that you talk to anywhere.
Yep.
Anywhere.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people get there's a little misconception, and I talk about this all the time, is everyone hears Barndo and they're like, that's the cheapest way to build. And it is by comparison. However,
apples to apples.
Yeah. Our set of build standards for our Barndo Co product is what we know is the best options.
Exactly.
And so, there was a time where we would allow people to do different things, and we would try to shop around and get it as economical as possible. But what we realize is those aren't necessarily the best.
Right.
And so in an effort to maintain the integrity of not just the home, but the company, we were like, if we know that this is the best option and people can't do it, I would rather them not do it.
Exactly.
And so we adopted these standards like the last 90 days. So this second quarter, so we're still in it. We got a couple more weeks, but the mission was the standard, and just revamping that, going back to how everything's done, from the basics. Like, this is how every single home is to be built, even though every home is different.
Right.
These are the standards in which we do it, and these are the things that we include that other builders charge upgrades for. But we know 90% of the people building want these things, so I don't want to go out there and advertise, these beautiful pictures, and then when they come in to build, realize that that's an extra $80,000. I would rather just give you the price.
Exactly.
And so we try to be very transparent with that and say, look, here's what's included in our pricing, and these are all the upgrades. Whole home LVP, tile showers, all this different stuff that ordinarily would be pretty substantial upgrades.
Right.
And so that's a big thing when people are comparing it. They're like, well, we found this other builder, they're way cheaper than you. And I'm like, well, what are they giving you?
Exactly.
Because
it's not the same product.
No, not at all. It's not the same. And the thing is like, you couldn't build what we build for those prices just because of the nature. Like, in barndominiums in and of themselves, just the structure is an upgrade.
Exactly.
It's all 6x6 and 2x6.
Even the 2x6 exterior walls, that's an upgrade anywhere else. Anywhere else you go is 2x4 framing on the exterior walls.
And then you got the steel roofing, which is a metal roof upgrade everywhere else. Right. You got steel siding, which is a siding upgrade everywhere else. Yep. So you're already starting out the day with massive upgrades just in the actual construction and the structural components of the home. Not to mention the maintenance and upkeep is so minimal. Right. When you go Barndo.
Exactly.
But interior wise, like doing the whole house LVP, I remember the biggest thing for project managers coming in, they're like, I didn't see a line item. We were doing LVP in the bedrooms and this and that. I don't know. We do the whole house. You know, that's our standard. You know, exactly. If you want to downgrade, you can downgrade.
Right. Put carpet in, put roll vinyl in if you'd like.
That's right. But this is what we do. This is how we offer it. And we try to position it so that everybody can get what we know the majority of people want.
Right.
And that's included in that pricing. So we're not sitting at the table, and again, you're always going to miss the mark a little bit. Sales has that obstacle all the time. Production's got to go out there and actually create that product.
Exactly.
But sales has to make it make sense on paper first. And
right. And that's a big hurdle in itself because especially with the way we sell here, you have people that are selling custom homes who don't necessarily know all the little fine details that go into actually building that home.
That's right.
So we have a lot of times, and this goes back to being prepared on the front end of the job. They get ready to shift the job over to production, and they send us all the paperwork. I have to look through everything and make sure that everything that they sold and everything that's on that plan in the spec sheet will work in that county or in the house. Because there are a lot of times that this is a big selling point for someone to have this specific thing, and ends up we can't do that, whether that be for code reasons or anything else.
Right.
And then they're upset about it.
Yep. Or you just realize you're looking at it on paper and you're like, hey, this looks cool, but it can't be done.
Exactly.
And so
so
we call that RSB. That just stands for Ready, Set, Barndo.
Right.
And that's that meeting. That's part of the baton race from where they've been in dream mode. They're pulling things out of their head, getting it on paper. They're trying to make it make sense financially. They've signed, they're funded, they're ready to go. They're about to meet their project manager and get put into queue to start building and breaking ground and doing all the exciting to them at that moment in time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they realize this is the worst part of the experience because, they're expecting this beautiful dream home to just, we're going to show up and plant it there.
Yep, exactly. Drop it from a helicopter.
But let's talk a little bit about that RSB. So, again, that's a Ready, Set, Barndo meeting, and that is the transition of, hey, you're fully funded and ready to rock, ready to break ground. You're through everything. You've made the decision to build with us, and you're about to meet your project manager and kind of go over all the disclosures and all the things that we do and explain the process of the build and what they can expect and all that stuff. The preparation in that. You touched on it a little bit, but what does that look like for you typically? So you get a job folder and then what?
So I'll basically, the agent or someone in the office will email me usually over all of the documents that are tied to that job. And first thing I do is as soon as I get it, I try to do it the same day they send it to me. I'll go to the office and I'll print out everything. The plans, the spec sheet, cabinet renderings, all the paperwork they sent me, I print everything out. I lay it all out on the table, and I just start looking through everything. Look at the plan, make sure the plans match the specs, make sure anything that's on the plan that they want is charged for in the spec sheet. That's a big one because it can be missed, and it happens. So that's a big part of it. Definitely the plans in the spec sheet. But again, you have to make sure that everything matches. If your cabinet rendering measurements don't match your actual house measurements, that's a problem. Your cabinets aren't going to fit. So you have to be prepared. You have to look at everything. I mean, you have to think of anything and everything that could possibly go wrong, and you have to make sure that everything is correct on paper. Because if it's incorrect on paper, it's going to be incorrect in the field.
Right. And then the importance behind that for you is when you pull the permit, your time clock starts.
Exactly.
Right. And you're on time on dime.
Exactly.
Delivery.
Yep.
Starts.
Not to mention that's when the people get my phone number, and that's when they start calling me. Hey, when's this happening?
Yep.
So that's when we're running.
Yeah. So there's a lot of build up to that.
Yeah, it's a lot of build up, a lot of preparation, like I said, especially on the sales side, and then coming to me and letting me vet through it and make sure everything's correct.
So what happens if you're a client, right, and you've went through the whole process, you're there, and they send over the start pack, and you're preparing for this RSB, and you come into the RSB and you realize there's a window that won't fit or there's something that's there. how does that unpack in that meeting, and then what kind of expectations could they have for how that gets fixed before they start breaking ground?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, the pre-construction meeting, RSB is what we call it. That's one of the most important meetings in the process. That is where you're setting all the client expectations on the front end. And again, any small issues, if it's major stuff, like, a list of things that are just not going to work and we have to go back to the drawing board, we're not even going to do the meeting until all the major stuff is figured out. Because I don't want to come in and just, be a dumpster fire.
Right.
I want to be prepared. I want everything to be correct. Small changes like a window that we have to shrink down or something like that, we can easily just go over that in the meeting. I'll set them down. I'll be like, hey, we can't get this size window. This is the next closest size we can get. So we're going to put that in. Is that okay with you? Go through that, make sure they're on board with that. But yeah, I mean, the small changes we can just go over in the meeting, just present it to them in a fashion, just like anything, In reality, we cannot get this window size. So we're going to have to shrink it down to the next closest size. Not a big deal. We'll do it in the field. We'll have the framers reframe it, or if it's not framed yet, we'll mark it on the plan so they frame it correct the first time, and then we'll put the new window in.
Right. In that RSB, when you're setting expectations, there's a couple things, like you got this big pre-construction.
Yeah.
It's kind of a checklist,
right.
But it's really there for informational purposes for the client.
Exactly.
You know exactly what's going to happen because you've built hundreds and hundreds and hundreds
right.
of homes. They may be building for the first time.
Exactly.
Maybe they've done it once before, but they're not experts in it. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of going over those things like, hey, here's what you can expect on your job site. Out of those things, because there's 30 things that
2 pages now.
Yeah. What would you say, like 1 or 2, maybe 3 things that people see and they're like, oh, because they just don't understand?
So I would say probably the biggest one is the locks on the doors. So that's a separate, its own item on our sheet now. That's a big one because, again, I think Nick talked about this on his episode. We have to put locks on the house in order to be covered by insurance and to protect your house from people that you don't want to go in there.
Right.
So a lot of people get kind of freaked out when you tell them, hey, we're going to lock you out of your house that's on your land, but it's for a good reason. We're not.
Right.
The goal is not to lock the client out. We always put a lock box on the front door, and I'm always open to giving them the code to that, just in case they ever want to get in and look around. I'm not opposed to that. We just have to be covered for insurance purposes and for liability risk. I mean, if a client walks in the house when they're framing it, and a framer drops a board and hits them on the top of the head, that's an issue.
Right.
No one from the BARNDO code knows that they're there. Then they try to come back at us and say, I got hurt on the job site. Well, no one knew you were out there. If I would have known you were going to go out there, I would have told you not to go out there because the framers are framing it. It's a dangerous,
right.
situation.
Well, not only that, but some of the things also with, having a lock site is if they're going out there because they want to see what's going on.
Right.
A lot of times you'll meet them out there.
Exactly.
And because they're absolutely going to see something that they've got a question about.
Of
because,
course. Again,
they probably have never been in an active job site. They probably
right.
never seen something, and they're going to have this panic moment.
Right.
And it's so much easier to diffuse that while you're standing right beside them. Be like, hey, look, yep, I see that. This is how this works. We're in this process.
Yeah.
This is how this gets taken care of.
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, a lot of client, disappointment or even questions that they have are just simple stuff that they don't know because they're not in they're not in the industry. It's some that I look at and I'm like, yeah, that's standard. We see that on every job, but
right.
they don't know that.
Right.
So then they see it and they freak out. And I have to calm them down. No, it's okay. It's normal. If it's wrong, we'll fix it. If it's broken, if it's missing, we'll get it in.
I'm going to change your guys' title to project counselors.
Yeah, right.
What else? Is there anything else on that sheet that kind of
I think the only other thing I can think of is the build time. So the build time is a big one for everyone. Obviously, everyone is in a rush to get it done as fast as possible, especially the client. They want to move in as fast as possible, and obviously they're paying interest on a loan. They want to get it done as fast as they can. So contractually, we give them a year. They sign a 12-month contract. Obviously, our goal is to build it as fast as possible. Our goal at the moment is 6 to 8 months.
Right.
But again, on the sheet, everywhere, it's a year, 365 days.
Right.
So people kind of freak out when they see a year. But it can happen if we run into issues, but that's not the standard, and that's not our goal.
There was a time where, we were really humping it to get it done in a year.
Yeah.
And, so the process has improved to the point now to where, y'all's build cycle and y'all's schedule and everything that incentivizes you as a project manager to get the job done is not a year long.
Right.
You're going to be just as disappointed and upset as they are.
Oh, absolutely.
If that project takes 12 months to build.
Exactly.
However, contractually, things happen.
Exactly.
And there's things that could happen that we have no control over. So there's buffers in there. And then occasionally you get that job that just like
everything goes wrong.
Everything.
Every step of the way, it's always something.
And part of it is like explaining to them that like it's us versus everything that goes wrong
versus
or goes
all the
right.
challenges.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because it's not like it's them versus the builder.
No.
And a
That's
lot of
not what we want.
No,
we want to be a team.
Yeah.
With the client and the Barndo Co. We all want to be on the same path with the same goal. We want to get it done as fast as possible. However, we don't want to sacrifice quality. I come from production. You know, that's a world where you're pushed to just get your times down, and they're not totally concerned about quality. That was my big complaint with production building, was they were always pushing me to build it faster, and I don't want to because I have to sacrifice quality. And I'm the kind of person, I take pride in my work. I want the client to be as happy as possible when I close on that house with them. You know, I'm the one facing them. They're all the issues that they see, they're bringing to me. And I don't want to be the bad guy. You know, I want people to be happy. I want people to move into a house that they love and they had a decent experience. Yep. So I do like the switch because I can take a little bit more time and make sure everything is done correctly.
I love that answer. Love it. You took the words out of my mouth though about the timeline and how all that rolls out.
I mean, honestly, I mean, doing it as fast as you can, it really causes issues because especially if you have subs scheduled on top of each other, if one guy doesn't show up or if one guy messes something up, it screws up the whole schedule.
Right. Yeah. What so in your 6 months here, you know, what's been the coolest project you've worked on?
The coolest one I would probably say is the one way out there in Westminster, Buckhaven Trail. Yeah, that one. It was really cool. It's actually, I think he said it's going to be a hunting lodge, but they did the timber porches out there, and he had the dark siding. He did something really, really custom. Like a dark green trim.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's on the virtual tour.
Yeah. Everybody loved that.
Yeah,
yeah.
That was a really
doors
cool
and the trim.
Yep.
And,
that was a really cool one. So I took that one over right at drywall. So I took it from cabinets and finished it out. Yeah, man, the finishes in that house are nice.
Yeah, that's a super beautiful house. We had a ton of comments about the trim to the point where everybody's like, "Why did we post pictures?" Because now everybody wants this color.
Everyone
trim.
wants the green trim now.
Yeah, it looks super good.
Standard semi-gloss white.
Yeah. What about the craziest experience you've had?
Oh gosh, the craziest. Man, we've had a lot of crazy moments. Honestly, the craziest was probably the retreat. That was something I've never experienced before. I've never been a part of something like that. I mean, that's part of the reason I came to Barndo is because of the culture, and you guys really put back into your people. Yeah. And the retreat, what was it, 3 days, 4 days?
Yeah, it was 4 days.
Yeah, that was...
You're talking about, our annual.
Yeah,
So every quarter we do a quarterly offsite where we get away for a day or something and do something together. But then once a year, we all head up into the mountains where it's been the last couple of years, and get away for 4 days, and we just kind of set it up to pour back into you guys,
right?
So you can show up different for your family, and you know, like just take a moment to like think about all the things that are necessary for you to be the best version of you.
Exactly.
And that's pretty cool when you start in December, and then your first experience is like, what is going on?
Exactly.
What was the craziest thing that you experienced there?
Probably Nick Alfano. I think he's been on the podcast, so shout out Nick.
Yeah, you can go back and watch Nick's episode. It's he's a tremendous guy, one of my biggest mentors.
Yeah, he's intense.
Yeah. What about him?
Oh man, just the way he talks. I mean, all of the wisdom he puts on you, and just makes you really reflect on yourself. And the way he can really push you past your limit, physically and mentally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun to see people in that environment because you're not expecting it, especially as a new person that's like never been.
For a builder too, like you don't expect to come into a builder and experience something like that, you know, especially I've worked for a few builders and that's never been anything like that. You know, we go have a pizza party or, you know, go to the arcade or go to Top Golf, but never anything like that.
Yeah. No, it's important, man. Like for us, for me and Ross as well, it's like you guys share a portion of your time with us. We get the lion's share of it, you know, the world we live in, everybody's working, everybody's got to provide for their families. But we know that like what you do isn't who you are.
Exactly.
You know, when you pull up at home, your kids don't stand in the window and be like, "Oh, look, there's Project Manager."
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and your wife may be like, "Project Manager's home," you know. But it's Dad, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you're a husband, you're a father, like you got a life.
Exactly.
And so I think a lot of times businesses get derailed and they get so focused on the product and the money and the return and the things and all the stuff that they forget that everybody's a human being.
Right.
Everybody's got a bigger purpose. Right. And everyone that works here, I hope, has a bigger purpose, something that they're working towards, something that they're passionate about that has nothing to do with building a Barndo or selling a Barndo or, you know, answering phones for the Barndo Co. Right. Like if your whole life is caught up in just this one thing, then you're missing something.
Exactly.
And so I always try to like make an effort to take a moment to pause, pour back into you guys and like say like, let's make sure you're showing up good for all your other responsibilities. Because if you're taking the time to make sure you're the best version of yourself, like the B in Barndo stands to be the best at everything we do.
Yep.
Well, everything we do is not just here.
Right.
And so if we can be the best versions of ourselves at home and we can be the best version of ourselves in all these relationships and our friendships and family life, then it makes it that much easier to be the best version of yourself here. Because if your home's on fire, your world's on fire.
Exactly.
You know, and that makes you distracted and
right.
you lose sight of things.
Get into argument with the old the old lady. It's hard to focus on work when you have all those thoughts going through.
That's
your
right.
head.
When that phone's going bump, 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 bump all day long. And that's part of life. And so the thing about it is if you and especially in the line of work we're in, it's so easy to get lured in and sucked into the trap of this is my primary focus.
Right.
There's so much more to life than just doing what we do to earn income. And so like time is the most valuable resource. And so I like to give my time to give back. And then we do things like partner with the Miracle League. So like Summer Bash is coming up. This is going to be our second year doing Summer Bash, and we're hoping to give the biggest sum of money we've ever given away. And there's no better organization on this planet, in my opinion, that you could give it to.
Absolutely.
And, a part of that is just like financially supporting them, but we also go out there and volunteer, and you got to experience that.
I did.
And
I loved it. I fell in love.
Yeah,
I really did.
Talk about like what about that was cool for you?
Man, I mean, I love kids. I mean, I have 3 of my own, and I mean, I love seeing kids having fun and smiling. And seeing kids like that who are disabled and, maybe they don't get to experience stuff like that on a daily basis. Our kids are, they're pretty, well, you could say normal kids. They can go out, they can run around, they can play outside. You see big smiles on their faces because they're running and playing and having fun. But these kids, they're disabled. They can't do a lot of the things like that. So you bring them out to this Miracle League and you get to see them, their faces light up. It's so rewarding. I mean, I just go out there and I play with the kids, let them have fun, watch them have fun. And it's one of the most rewarding things I've ever experienced.
And you get buddied up with a dude that can run the 40 and 3.9.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're trying to chase him. Like
exactly.
They got pictures of me, man, with my tongue hanging out of my mouth trying to catch this kid. Tommy, he ended up being like one of my best friends. And every time he sees me, he cracks me up. But I love it. And the cool thing about it is it's bigger than Barnes. It's bigger than just building houses. It's bigger than just making money. It's bigger.
Right.
And, the ability to experience that myself. And for me, my daughter played.
Right.
And so, like, I saw that and personally know the impact that it made on our life. And then to go out there and be able to put other people in a position to experience something that maybe you wouldn't experience. Like my normal is not your normal.
Right.
So now you get a taste of that and it makes you more aware.
Exactly.
And so then you're like, man. But the bigger piece behind that for me is maybe it inspires you to find something you're passionate about that you can get behind and get your family involved in. And then now you have something that means more to you than just putting on your work boots and going to punch the clock and then go back home. And, you're dividing your time. And, for me, it's a family effort. Like, you're going out to earn a living and like the motivation is who you are.
Exactly.
And this is just what you do.
Right.
And so for me, that's the biggest piece of it. And like, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have A players like you, right? You said it yourself, like, hey, I came here for the culture.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
If we don't monitor that, right? If you're not bought into the culture, because the culture is king to you,
right?
Right? And you've hit it like 7 different ways. You were like, hey, I'm not going to build it faster and sacrifice quality.
Exactly.
Hey, at the end of the day, this is, what I'm doing for this family to make sure that they have a great experience. And so in that, it's a win because you will safeguard that culture. And so then as long as you have bought into it and we uphold our end of the agreement, which is, hey, we want you to be the best version of you, and in return, we're going to be the best version of a company that you could hope for.
Exactly.
And just like we get on here a lot and talk about like things we're doing to improve the process, or hey, we heard you, we heard what you were talking about, we heard how you said we could get better. Your feedback is coming to us so that we can get better as a company and deliver the product better, deliver a better product, deliver the product more efficiently, lower cost on products, like make it easier for you to get into a barn dominium. We take all that feedback, and it doesn't matter. I don't care if it comes in the form of a 1-star review, a 5-star review, a Facebook comment, a phone call, a text, an email. I deal with it all the time.
Right.
Sometimes it's the most ecstatic, happiest people on the face of the planet. Sometimes it's people who are spitfire mad, who hate my guts, and they're just venting. But it all goes on paper.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, speaking of that, I mean, one of the most rewarding experience I've had, at least professionally at the Barndo Co. so far, was a situation like that. I came in, I took over from another guy in our area, and he had one client specifically who was not the most impressed with the product, at least the process. And it was mainly just communication breakdown. The previous guy, he just really couldn't communicate with him on his level to explain things and to calm him down. So I came in, same situation. I was right around drywall time, so I was taking it from drywall to finish. And I mean, by the end of the build, the guy was like, if anyone from Barndo's allowed on my property, it's you, Conner. And I was like, hey man, if that's all you got, I'll take it.
Yeah.
At least you're happy with me. Because again, my whole goal is to make you happy. I take pride in my work. I want you to be happy to move into this house.
Right. No, that's the win.
Exactly.
That's the win. And so, like I say, if you buy into that, and now that's part of who you are, the next person that comes in, like I tell everybody this when we interview, here's our core values. Mm-hmm. This is what we stand for. We grade everybody, at least quarterly, if not monthly, based off those core values. And it's part of like an EOS system, and not like we created this idea. We just emphasize it. And we go through there and we write out Barndo on the wall. We know what each letter stands for as a part of our core values. And we grade everybody on a plus, minus, or minus system. And if you have a minus, you cannot work for the Barndo Co. Gotcha. And so, some people look at that and be like, oh my God, does that not produce crazy turnover? No, because we go on the front end and we drive it home so far. Like, I don't do all the interviews anymore, but there was a point in time where I was doing at least a piece of every interview. Right. And I would come in and drill core values down into the dirt. And I would tell the person that I was interviewing, look, you can subscribe to these, or you could fake subscribe. Exactly. If you fake it, you won't be here in 90 days. Right. And it won't be me that fires you. It'll be everyone around you will squeeze you out like a splinter in somebody's thumb. Exactly. Right. You're going to fester up and you're going to expose yourself and they're going to remove you. Right. Because we don't want a splinter in our thumb. No. And so that buy-in at every level becomes safeguarded in the company now, to where you're more concerned with who we're hiring, not based off of their credentials, but based off who they are as a person. Exactly. Like, are they really Barndo material? Right. And so, and the cool side of that is we'll give shots to people who maybe don't have the tenure or the credentials as far as some people, based off of their ability to subscribe to core values first. Right. And then we can train them into becoming the ideal candidate for that job. Yeah. I mean, at that point, you almost want someone with no experience. That way, as long as you're bought into our culture, we'll teach you the correct way to do it. That's right. Yeah. Yep. We've been blessed though. We've got some really stud people, man, like that have came in, and absolutely. Nick has been a godsend. Like Nick has turned it around. Yeah. Nick came in a little over a year ago, and just basically looked at the process from a production standpoint and said, here's what we're doing. Yep. And we were in that transition phase of like, how do we start building this many homes? Right. And sales was outrunning production 100-1 at that point in time. Right. And now we're kind of neck and neck. Yep. And so, but it took that to realize like, okay, we were really good at building this many homes, but we need to build this many homes, and who got us here isn't necessarily going to get us there.
Exactly.
And so we were able to build this system. And so you're a product of that. Like you had, I think Nick knew you before, but
yeah,
so it was an easy recruit. But
yeah, me, Nick, and Billy all worked together at a previous company for a few years, so we've known each other for a few years.
Right.
And like I said, Billy taught me a lot. So
yeah, I love Billy. But the idea is you come into a system and a culture and a process that are all dialed in equally.
Right.
You have no option but to be successful.
Exactly.
And then there's areas and like lingering things or places where we didn't have all that figured out, and you see kind of like that experience, and then you see like now. So everyone's always in a transition stage. So like right now, there are clients who are in our system who are having the best experience of their lives, and we're like, this is the best, build time we've ever had. This is the best on budget we've ever had. This is the lowest amount of punch items we've ever had. Like the process is so good, and it's so relieving to travel around to all these different areas we're building in. And I pull up on job sites, and it's so consistent and clean and executed and perfect. And then, but there's still, with the growth that's happening, that system is having to be tweaked to now include even more builds. We were like a little over a year ago, we're like, we got to get to 100 builds.
Right.
We got to get to 100 builds. We got to figure out, we've got to move 100 homes a year to keep up with the demand.
Yep.
And now we're in a position where the number's 200.
Right.
And now it's not as big of a difference from 100 to 200. It's basically plug in more players.
Exactly.
But there are some things that needs to, like, I had Jordan and Haley on the show, and I'm not sure when it's going to drop. This is before or after them, but we rolled out this new client experience process.
Okay.
And so basically now not only do they have a sales agent and a project manager and area managers and all these other levels of management that they can be involved with, but now they have someone who is their experience coordinator from the moment they onboard with the Barndo Co. till a year after they've lived there.
Very nice.
And they're just there. They're non-biased. They're not up against your production schedule.
Right.
They're not up against the wall with, the sales quota.
The budget.
They're literally a neutral party to just make sure that the experience between the Barndo Co. and the client is as seamless as possible. And to make sure that when you're out there and you're like, these people told me they got to be in by this day, I'm going to do everything in my power to get there, that we don't forget to call them and say, hey, bring your kids out on Saturday and put their handprints in the concrete, or, hey, don't forget this day, or, hey, when we do your, the site visit and we got your future front door sign, and, hey, these guys are coming out. They're going to take a picture. Like, this is a fun time,
Right.
And now you have this person who's navigating that experience with them so that they have someone reminding them of all the cool milestone moments through this process. So it's not just building a house. This is an experience.
Absolutely.
And we want it to be a good one. But in addition to that, they also now have a neutral party that they could reach out to if they can't get you immediately, right? So rather than fester or, solely go into Builder Trend and drop this message in there, now they could say, oh, he didn't answer, let me call my experience coordinator.
Okay.
Hey, try to reach Connor. I got this issue, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Hey, no problem. I'll let him know right now on our internal messaging.
Right.
And make sure he gets in touch with you, And so, like, just everything we can do to increase that experience and to have everybody have a great experience, and everything that we do is super calculated.
Oh, absolutely.
I was going there earlier talking about, we listen to a lot of client feedback, but we also listen to employee feedback.
Absolutely.
And so you guys come to the table all the time and say, hey, this isn't working. And we sit down and go, okay,
almost a daily occurrence.
How do we make this work better? And so we're always testing and then fixing and testing and fixing. And then we test it and it works. And we're like, all right, great. Now we're testing and fixing, and then exactly. and that we just continuously do that. We're not setting our laurels. Like, there's a chance something's going to go wrong with your project, or something's going to go out of whack, or something wasn't perfect. And
I mean, honestly, I like to tell clients, expect issues and delays, and then you won't be disappointed when they don't happen.
That's right.
Yeah. So
it's the old 80-20
expect those
rule.
up front. Exactly. Expect those up front, and when they don't happen, then you'll be pleasantly surprised. Because it's construction, especially with post-frame hybrid, something that we've coined on people's raw land. there are going to be issues. There are going to be delays.
100%.
Expect those. And when they don't happen, then you'll be all the happier.
Yeah. Well, that'll transition me into this. If you were to give like 3 pointers from your perspective to someone who's considering building a barndominium with us, what 3 things would you tell them? It could be 1 to 3, whatever.
Yeah.
That you think would set them up for success.
I think honestly the biggest one, and it kind of encompasses a lot, is be flexible. I mean, we have to be flexible. It's a construction process. It's not, we're not building in a manufacturing plant. We're building these things on site on your land. So be flexible. The schedule's not always going to be followed exactly. Subs might not show up the day they tell me they're going to. Be flexible in your spending, because there might be some unknown costs that come up throughout the process, and you have to be able to, foot the bill for that. So yeah, I mean, that's my biggest one, is be flexible. And then again, I mean, you have to understand that there are going to be issues. There are going to be some delays. So expect those. And when they don't happen, then you're pleasantly surprised.
Right.
So those are my 2 biggest ones for sure.
That was great advice. And if you're listening and you come into this and you're like thinking like, oh my God, hidden expenses, delays, all this kind of stuff, own that. We do a couple things to mitigate some of those things. One of the things that we do that a lot of builders don't do, but more builders are doing, which is wonderful, is fixed rate pricing.
Yep.
We don't come in, we don't have contingencies of any cost plus basis to where, we're going to, at the end of the day, tally up all the receipts and put a markup on it. And if the number's different, the number's different. We do a lot of due diligence on the front end. And if there's a big complaint is a lot of people will get frustrated during the onboarding process because things don't work out. And they'll get upset and leave a 1-star review. Oh, this is the worst experience of my life. I'm okay with those because I'm glad that we discovered this before we broke ground.
Right.
Because if we were to rush you into this and we got out there and then you encountered that issue, at least you figured it out on paper.
Right.
Right? You figured it out on paper. You can go talk to a million other builders. You can go figure it out. I want you to get what's best for you and your family.
Not to mention paper is much cheaper.
Oh my gosh, man. That's the purpose of this is you onboard, you're in the driver's seat, you get to make that decision for you and your family. And we can discover a lot of this beforehand. Right. Because when we give you a price, that's the price. Now what Connor's talking about is there's absolutely going to be something during the process where you're going to change your mind.
Right.
And those change orders, sometimes there's money built in as a buffer in your loan to where you can cover some of those. A lot of times those are cash upgrades. Right. And so having some extra spending money on hand, having a little reservoir of cash there to say, hey, it's here if we need it. Right. Not everybody does.
No.
But often is the case. Someone says, well, we've thought about it. We really want to change this out, or we want to do this different, or we want to upgrade our countertops, or and
not even just that. Something as simple as utilities.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a house that's 1,300 feet off the road and they have to run a power line from the road 1,300 feet, you're gonna have to pay for all that.
Yep.
Especially building your own land, it's all on the client.
Yeah. Well, and the good thing is in that onboarding process, we're part of the site visit and stuff. We're gonna catch some of that. Right. We didn't do it as thoroughly in the beginning, again because when it's less volume,
right?
You
less problems.
Well, but as you start doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses, you realize like, okay, we're going to do this one extra step on the front end,
exactly,
and we're going to come out there and tell you, and you're going to know day one, hey, look, we're in our price, we include X number of feet. You're this many feet, so you can expect a range of around this much money extra, and we're going to put that in there. But there is a chance that like something goes crazy, or like there's things, but we're going to make you aware of those throughout the process. You're not flying blind into it, but it's always good to have a little extra cash on hand because you're going to change something. Danny Godfrey is one of our previous clients. He did an episode with me. That's the first thing he said. His advice was have more money than you think you're going to need because and Danny's awesome, but he's out there, like sowing seed and then putting down sod and doing this and changing his driveway and they refurnish their whole house. Like there's things that are going to come up that have absolutely nothing to do with your build. Right. But it would always be a good idea to have a little extra cash there.
Yeah. And especially the grading too. The grading's a big one because grading, until we get a machine out there and start digging dirt, we have no idea what we're sitting on top of.
That's right.
So it is very common to go start digging, either have really, really soft dirt that we cannot build on, and we either have to bring dirt in to be able to build on it, or even potentially something like hitting rock. You know, we can't dig it under slab plumbing if we're sitting on top of a rock.
That's right.
So there's going to be extra costs involved with that. Either
so here's the cool thing is when you onboard and you get your site visit, you have someone go out there and quote you for your rough grade, putting in your construction access, putting in that gravel drive. A lot of people keep that. Like at the end of the job, that you might put a little new stone down, but a lot of people just say, hey, we're good with a gravel driveway. Yeah. But you're going to have some preliminary numbers. But again, you're correct. Like that's the advantage of onboarding. So like everything you're doing is like, I love it because it's driving home the fact that like this onboarding process allows you to discover a lot of this without being blindsided.
Exactly.
But 100%, if you get a quote for $30,000 to do all your pre-construction grading and everything, and they get out there and they dig up granite, your price is going to go up. Exactly. And as out of my control, it's out of your control. It's just something that happens. Now, we do a lot of stuff. You know, we've got some expertise where we've built in these areas and we kind of know, but there's always an unforeseen condition.
Exactly.
Always. And so keeping that in the back of your mind while you're going through the process is, hey, there's a chance that something's going to pop up that requires a little money. Let's build a contingency in with the lender, or let's have a little cash reserves over there to tap into that. That's great advice. Great advice.
And I mean, that doesn't just go for custom. I mean, production builders deal with the same thing every single day. I mean, I've worked for companies that have been in business for 25 years, and they deal with the same exact issues on a daily basis. It's not just because we're custom building our own lot. It's just because we're builders, and that's the problems builders deal with.
Yep. You're trying to make something tame in a wild, wild place.
Exactly.
So
the difference is production builders, they foot the bill instead of the client.
And then they just raise the sell price.
Exactly.
And but you know, it look, there's elements of risk in everything you do. You go found your perfect piece of land. We're not, you know, we don't have people calling us saying, hey, we bought lot 6 in this subdivision. We want you to come put our barndo in there. Most of our clients are buying rural. Exactly. And these are just some things to think about during that process. Exactly. So, man, I appreciate you coming on here and dropping some of your PM wisdom, and congrats on the Q1 belt. Okay, I'm anxious to see how Q2 phases in. We're getting close to that, man. So go down to the beach, go fishing, and
I won't be there, unfortunately.
Oh, man. Yeah. Maybe we'll have to mail the belt to you.
There may be. If I win it.
So, but again, dude, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options, or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.